Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to HypnoVision Studios, and I am your host, Nicholas. Today, very special topic, semen retention. Now, I've already done a video about this, and I have been teasing to do another. Well, here it is. Things that you may not have known will be revealed in this video. So semen retention is not just some term that you can throw around. Semen retention actually does have a spiritual aspect to it that it's very hard to fake if you know what I'm saying. There is a lot of videos on the internet about semen retention, and I want to draw a very distinct line in the difference in some of these different practices that people are referring to. And also, if you've never even heard of it, this should get the conversation started for you to do your own homework on this and enlighten yourself, because the information that is attached to this, I'm going to try and insert screenshots in the post-editing area of this video afterwards. But I've also got some written content here that I'm going to share with you as I go along with this video. So please stay tuned. If you're new to my channel and you find this information interesting, please leave a comment, a like, share it with somebody. If there's something in particular that you hear during this video, please let me know. There's so much stuff that it's hard for me to cram everything into every single video. Semen retention is actually a very ancient practice that goes back beyond religion itself. Now, the modern day internet age of things, it has been somewhat glamorized for the public. Now, I've talked about this before in the previous video of how the mental effect of you seeing the different videos on YouTube, if you're researching this type topic, about she can smell your semen on you. Well, let's be honest. Let's break this down between the mental psyche aspect of that and the biological aspect of that, because one is primal urge and the other is not. So subconsciously, yes, just like when a woman is having her monthly cycles, a man does too. And it's something that I really want to point out in a very straightforward way, that I did not know this in the past. And so for the past 2 years, I've been celibate, and we have a Capricorn moon coming up in just a few days, and that is my sun sign. So I'm very excited. This has been 23 moon cycles for me staying celibate and practicing semen retention. So everything that I'm presenting to you today is firsthand knowledge, not just simple research that I've gone online and tried to repeat like a parrot. So let me be perfectly honest that I'm speaking from a firsthand knowing of almost 2 years now. And it is very life-changing. The energy levels that I have experienced over the last 2 years has been phenomenal. And I have a sense of drive that is it's insane. Honestly, it's insane. And everything behind me has been manifested in the last 2 years. Everything that's on my channel did not exist before 2 years ago. So if you go and look at my timeline, you'll see a wide variety of topics, all kinds of stuff. And it's been like a supernova, really. And I'll get to that in just a minute. It's like a skyrocket of energy and drive that I've never experienced before. And I'm 44 years old. So that says a lot about the power of semen retention. It also heightens your awareness to a degree. The best way I can explain this was, if you're underwater, then sounds are muffled. So there's not a clarity to it. I kind of liken this to the scene of Neo waking up in his little pod in the beginning of The Matrix, when his head comes up out of the water and he pulls the tube out. That's literally what it felt like in some sense of the awareness going to such a clarity, crystal clear. And in the very early stages, it felt supernatural. And there was no way that I could openly talk about what I was experiencing from my point of view and feel comfortable in the beginning with not, worrying about what, somebody would do. You're crazy. You are absolutely losing your mind. You need to go get therapy. Well, quite the opposite has happened. My mental clarity has is gone to a place that it's never been before. So I want to dive into this right now and first separate what semen retention is and what it is not. So on the Internet of Things, you might have heard the term nofap, which refers to abstaining from masturbation. Well, semen retention is more in line with complete abstinence. However, it is the practice that is different. Brahmacharya, please forgive me if I say this wrong, but also prana, which is the breathing exercises in meditation. Also, the energy centers, as that energy moves up and down our spine, because we are electrical beings. That is the bioelectrical side of us, the chemistry, because it takes neurons firing. That is electricity in our mind. It is firing from neuron to neuron to neuron. And so stands to reason that also happens up and down our nervous system in our spine. And as I go along, you will start to see this. But Brahmacharya is the whole solar system, but semen retention is the sun. That is the source of eternal mental and physical power required. This distinction is made so that you understand the ancient Vedic practice of Brahmacharya is much more than the modern day nofap of semen retention. Now, I'll put this graphic on the screen, but when I started my journey, I had no idea some of the effects that I would feel from this. And so when things were happening, I was kind of like in a reaction state of, instead of being guided, I was actually having to turn around and figure out what just happened. And that would lead me down all these different rabbit holes. But as these pieces started to come together, I started to see like the multi-complex and multi-layers of how all this stuff was moving at the same time. So I wrote, there's a couch on the other side of the camera that you can't see. I was down here, it was almost 2 years ago. All of this was center block wall. There was nothing really down here, and I had been working my tail off. And I remember sitting on the couch and I broke down and started crying. And I heard a voice, "Burn bright, baby." And then I started to write this. Let's talk about the universe within. We are all made from the stars. Life is repeating patterns from the biggest to the smallest. Don't believe? Then you never really have taken the time to look. I found mine. The star was nearly burned out when I arrived. This isn't a story about the past. We are actually in the present looking forward. But before we take off, I want to tell you about my star. Well, she's my sun. She is one of the brightest stars in the night sky right now. But here's the thing with the galaxy. Those stars are so far away, but by the time the light gets to us, it was truly in the past. Much like the connection on a soul level, she really was from my past. I really tried to wake her, but in the end, it was nothing but more cycles. So this, referring to cycles and linking this back to how women have their monthly cycles, I was very shocked, and I experienced a range of emotions and anger during the time of me starting to realize that men actually do have cycles. And this starts to get into like the kundalini energies, the chakra systems, the way that the energy travels up and down our spinal cords. We have the different hemispheres, and then we have the pineal gland in the center. So a lot of my content, you will see some of these different themes and how they are interconnected in the grander connection of things. But the spark of creativity is in that gland as the spark travels past one hemisphere to the other hemisphere. And that doorway back and forth, when you think of logic, analytical mind, there's no emotion in analyzing. So it's a gray area. And I find this very fascinating with wordplay because I think of gray aliens and how we think that there's all this stuff from outer space. Well, here I am writing about outer space, reading articles about Brahmacharya and the solar system, and my mind is just kind of really like blown away at how did I know some of this stuff and then find supporting evidence to back it up. But the gray alien stuff is really interesting because I started going down that rabbit hole and I came across some information talking about the gray matter that is in your spinal cord and also your brain, which supports a lot of the brain functions. And if we do not eat healthy, we do not take care of ourselves, that gray matter can affect how the electricity, how our whole human functioning operates, which is very interesting. So there's different ways you could look at this. If a person is cut off from their creative side or they are stunted in some way, and there's no shame in this because I think it is the human experience to try to understand emotions, the range of colors within the emotions. So one way that you can look at this would be to the analytical mind is like a coloring book, black and white. There's no color, there's no life. And you could take that a step further and you could do one of those pages you remember when you were a kid, connect the dots, right? So by connecting the dots, we are starting to give a border or boundary for our shape. Then we take the crayons and we color in the picture. Now take that a step further. We took a 1D and we started to draw a form into 2D. Now, if you ever have one of those books where you open it up and the image pops out, that would be like a 3D image. So that image springs forth. Now, symbolism here again, springtime. Well, what happens when you press a spring? You depress a spring. Now, if you take the spinal cord and you look at how the energy travels around the spinal cord and you look at the caudeus, I believe is how it's pronounced, the staff with the wings and how the DNA is intertwined. So like a spring compressed, right? Decompressed, pressed, decompressed. So up and down the spinal cord, the energy flows. The problem, calcification in the pineal gland weakens the ability for the spark to travel. It's like an insulator. And through ancient history and teachings, it is very obvious that at some point in history, this information was intentionally concealed. It was intentionally dispersed in such a way that it was almost hidden. That's why, for one thing, it's ancient information and knowledge. But the other thing is, how do you control the masses if they cannot create? If you stunt the creativity where a person cannot control their emotions, fire, excitement, anger, excitement, water emotions, crying, emotional. So if you can stunt the humans as a whole, as a mass, in this type of understanding of knowledge and how the actual inner system of life support goes, then yeah, you can control people and make them believe anything on the outside because that spark is cut off. And the in living color parts that gives those logical thoughts, that emotional color of life, are suddenly given to you by the outside world through the lens. That would be like a colorblind person putting on a pair of glasses that would give them color, but the people who program those glasses have skewed the colors and the definitions and turned words upside down. So now what you experience as reality is not real to you. It is what they have decided should be real for you. And that's a big difference in how you see yourself when you know this information. So moving on, there's been a lot of famous people that practice semen retention. Muhammad Ali was one of them, and he was known to go for up to 2 months before a fight without any kind of climax. And let me be perfectly honest, when it comes to semen retention, I don't know how many men know this or don't know this. I certainly didn't know it up until a few years ago. There is a finite difference between the moment of orgasm and the moment of ejaculation. There is a split moment there. And through meditation and practice, you can learn to go right up to that edge. Where do you think in the world of BDSM, the term edging comes from? But most of the time, it becomes more playful and it becomes overused, for example. So being able to obtain the orgasm of sexual intercourse without releasing the seed. Let me repeat that, without releasing the seed. And what I'm getting ready to say next is kind of interjecting something right in the middle of this conversation. The Godhead seed of life. Now, there's a theory that I posted on my channel the other day. It's not really a theory. It is actually more from agricultural, but every seed has a seeding, an outer casing, the G in general principle of 33-degree masonry, general principle. That Godhead seed, when planted in the soul, now there's metaphor here, the soul in mother nature of the ground, the dirt, and then the soul of a human, the seed planted in the darkness of the soul. Now that seed can grow and mature into a full organism or human and be able to reproduce, expanding the life experience. So life seeks to evolve and expand, not detract and off itself. We are like the only things on this planet that seem to do that to ourselves for some reason, and it's kind of weird. But it's actually something that does happen. But when you and I'll try to put this link about the Godhead seed because it's really fascinating. When you look at you could take one seed and plant it in the ground, and within a season or two, that one seed has yielded produce and more seeds to further the population. So it is expanding abundantly year after year, always growing and expanding outward. And it all comes from the center as it continues to grow. You can really see this in grapevines. Where do you think divine come from? Grapevines are like crawlers. They have these different leaders that come out and they branch off, and each one is able to produce just as much as the one before if they are properly pruned and the leaders are taken care of and nurtured. So there's a lot of metaphors and wordplay, word association going on with this. So the chemistry of the body would have a lot of factors of hydration, salt, the proper salt, which is not table salt. There's also on the electrical side, which would be getting enough electrolytes and vitamins and minerals into your body for the functioning of the nervous system itself. So you think about the survival mode, which I've talked about this before. When you're in survival mode, you're not really worried about certain things in your mind because your primary focus is to survive. So survival mode puts you into a scarcity mindset. And I believe I have something right here for that. Scarcity mentality is always feeling behind perpetually feel like you are playing catch up. Bills and responsibilities piling up, the weight of obligations overwhelm you, overscheduling yourself. These are different signs in the modern times. Reduced cognitive ability, constantly thinking about scarcity drains your mental bandwidth, leading to self-defeating actions. So in the ebb and flow of the sine wave, right? The wave, there is, with your self-talk, you get down in that bottom of that pit and you're like, oh man, I can never do anything right. Nothing works out for me. Everything I do is like, you can be so hard on yourself that you depress, right? You're depressed. So that image in that book, right? The pop-up image that has popped out into a 3D has now started to close back up because there is no nurturing. There is no water for nurturing. The sunlight, which if you look at agriculture, is what pulls those plants up out of the ground because they grow towards the sun. They are planted in darkness, surrounded by darkness, and they have to break through the surface to spring forth into life. I find this very fascinating. So scarcity mentality, if you switch things around, would be sacred. Sacred. So again, the play between Mother Nature, the sun, and how the family system works within human beings and the reproductive system, not just the primal urges, but the chemistry of it all. And you can look towards batteries to understand how this works. There is that positive and negative pole that creates the circuit for energy to flow. And there has to be a grounding for that to happen. So the grounding, the root, which is the base of our spine, which is where the root chakra is located, that is essentially the root, the tap root of your spine. Much like a tree has a tap root, that is the main root system from which everything has grown upward. So to stand the form up, sunlight would pull up that plant up out of the ground, right? So the metaphor and wordplay between all of this really kind of like draws this very vivid picture for me. And if you wanted to look at what a good father figure is and a good mother figure, all you have to do is look to Mother Nature. All you have to do is look in the sky above. That is the solar system. The sun, the S-U-N, S-O-N, the sun. Jesus, depicted with the sun behind his head, died at 33 years old. 33 vertebrates resonating on a vibrational level. Guys, the symbolism is all right there. And one only needs to unlock their imagination and take it out of the box and think outside the box to be able to see this, because that box is your focal point. And if you're so zoomed in onto the picture that you're watching, you cannot see outside the borders of everything else that's going around. And that's very interesting. So the pineal gland, which would be up above the throat chakra, which would be the third eye, and sits above that is the crown. Now, my experience with all of this really was more of a self-initiation that I did not know I was doing. I just got to a point where I was just ready for a change in my life, and so many different things just kind of lined up at one time, and I felt myself sitting on the couch that night, and that's when I started writing about the sun within. And that's when a lot of supernatural things started happening to me that I could not explain. Now, in hindsight, through the theming of spiritual lens, through the theming of semen retention, I understand that if my creative side had been depressed, if you are in a state of depression, then you feel bad about yourself, you have low self-worth, low self-confidence, your energy centers are not as strong as they should be. It is like a plant that is wilting in the hot sun that has not had rain in days. You start to withdraw. Do you understand how these English languages are really bad metaphors in some way? But you withdraw, you depress, you wither away eventually. So the spring forth would be like that seed in the root cracking open and that plant shooting up like Jack and the Beanstalk. There's so much symbolism here. There's 7 chakra centers, there's 7 drawers, there's Snow White, there's guys, it's everywhere. Once your eyes are opened, you cannot unsee it, and that's how it's been for me. The awareness factor is it's off the charts, and it's hard for me to explain to anybody on the outside who has not experienced semen retention and the spiritual aspect of it, and the awareness of everything, and the ability to pay attention to things, not just simultaneously, like hearing multiple things going on and being able to separate these different channels at one time, but you are multitasking and being creative also. So I don't want to get too much more long-winded because I already see I'm getting up to about 30 minutes on this video. But semen retention is a very potent, life-changing experience. There's no way I would go back to being careless with the creative life force within me. But what I want to really point out, and people who do not have the understanding of how this knowledge is applied to get to this understanding, may not be able to see how these dots are connected in that book. But when it comes to energy, imagination is pure, right? So if the imagination, the seat of God, would sit in between the both left and right hemispheres, then the spark is weak, boxing in your imagination. Because the thoughts come through, the emotions come through. They meet in that center of that pineal gland. That is where the imagination, the seat of God, the I in intuition, because the I in imagination is formless. It is the thoughts and the emotions that come together, right? Triangle, thoughts, emotions come together in the pineal gland. So that is the spark being able to pass through the circuit as it travels up, through, back down, because our spinal cord is part of the nervous system also. And the nervous system is more of an electrical side. So if we are depressed, then that directly affects our emotions, shutting down half of the body, limiting half of the body. Now it is hard for you to analytically feel. So you become cold, callous, almost like a psychopath. Now let me interject this here with another wordplay. If you tell people that you are a psychic, the natural tendency subconsciously is to prove you wrong. How would they prove you wrong? By trying every single path they can to prove you wrong. Psychopath. Guys, I am a life path number 9, so there's a lot of stuff that I have no idea how I know this stuff, but psychopath, that hit me the other day. I was like, wow, what life path are you on? So the people that might be on those paths are trying to block your path. These are people that don't have the same emotional channel that you have. These might be people that confuse love with lust, that confuse anger and excitement, that confuse the different emotional ranges and mislabel them. And that is where the back and forth of understanding comes from, because the logical mind and the creative mind speak different languages. And if this is turned around inside of a person's head, how do you think they're going to interact with somebody on the outside? If that person has indecisive, split personality, no shame, because even I can say that I've experienced that myself. That would be the extreme swings in feeling positive and then polarized to the negative. So there's no shame in any of this stuff. But man, I'm telling you something, there is so much here that I could probably talk for a week straight and not get it all out. There's, guys, semen retention, meditation, the moon cycles. So washed by the blood, we typically see that in religion depicting washed by the blood on the outside. We also see depicting olive oil here. Well, truthfully, what is happening, because our reproductive system is directly tied to our nervous system. What is happening is, if you are able to retain enough from 1 month to the next month, that which is retained converts itself back, and it travels back up the spinal cord and releases into the brain. That amount of semen creates more blood, washed by the blood, creating new life, new cells in the brain. It stands to reason logically when you stop and think about this. If that fluid can create life, then it can create new blood cells, giving you new life on the inside. What the hell is wrong with that? What man would not come to that conclusion and find that being the most valuable thing that he has in his whole entire existence? And all of a sudden, he sees that value that is inside of him. Think about that. Your self-worth is invaluable. Your creative potential is expanding. And there is no limit to where it can go, because you can take that same energy, that new life in yourself, and create new things. So the similarity of the chemical between semen and the central nervous system, both being especially rich in lectin, cholesterol, and phosphorus compounds, which would indicate that the emissions withdrawn from the body necessarily would starve nutrition from the nervous system. Observations of the immediate effects of an orgasm indicate that it temporarily exhausts the nervous system, and when repeated too frequent, leads to chronic nerve weakness. Wow, nerve weakness. You're getting on my nerves. I have a short temper, short fuse. I can't pay attention. I'm very distracted. I'm overwhelmed. Well, that's an overuse of your wand, my son. Did you see the wordplay? The wand, the phallic, the conductor of the magician of imagination is the wand that we were given, depicted in all the Harry Potter movies and Mickey Mouse Fantasia and Phantasmic. It's everywhere, implanted into everything subliminally. It is woven into the fabric of our society. And it is these subconscious little subtles that are trying to distract us into temptation. I don't want to sound like a preacher. I'm not a preacher, because I really believe that the whole religious system is built on the foundation of creation. So that is man-made. And this is real talk from real experience. But the semen retention stuff, if you don't know what 0 dark 30 is, if you've seen like athletes, 0 dark 30 is 30 days before an event, it's like a blackout. There is no activity. There is no, you want to keep your mind extremely focused on what it is you're doing and visualizing what it is that you will be doing. 0 dark 30. You are preparing for the championships. You are preparing for the big day. You are preparing for whatever it is that you are doing. And that does away with the distractions. But there's a whole history. If you start looking into semen retention, there's a endless amount of benefits that can come from it. And the other thing is being able to hear people for what they are really saying. And the self-realization in the beginning for me was like, oh my God, how much have I been missing all my life? Like really, how much have I been missing? And I found myself starting to really tune into what people were saying, not just what they were saying to me, but what they were saying about me. And that really started to sit in a way like, wow, okay, well, I need to do a lot of writing and I need to figure this stuff out. So that's what I started doing. There was nobody I could talk to because nobody really knew exactly what semen retention was. And to be quite honest, I'd rather to talk to the camera and put this on YouTube than sit down in therapy with somebody that may not even know themselves. And I see how the medical system is designed to not allow the doctors to be creative in their solutions in helping patients, but it drives them to prescribe different prescriptions and therefore affecting the doctor's will to properly be able to treat a patient. That's not in every single case, but I do see where that can happen. So who do you talk to when there is no one to talk to? Do you talk to yourself? Is that yourself responding? Who am I? And who wants to know? There's only me, myself, and I. And there is creation in my imagination and all of the characters that you and I and everyone else dream up inside of there. Now, the difference is being able to see yourself. Let me repeat that. Being able to see yourself. I'll give you a couple quick examples before I get off of here. When, for me, going through this phase of starting to discern and uncover stuff, I really started paying attention to the fact of how we identify with things on the outside. So if a person is trying to identify, is there a narcissist around me? Well, what do they normally do? They look outside and point, but never in the attempt of learning the information do they ever say, do I have these same traits? Do I exhibit examples of playing these traits out in other situations? And oftentimes, if you can identify it out there, you can identify it inside. And if you can identify it in there, then you need to change it inside so you can stop seeing it out there. It's mind-blowing once these things start to make like this simple sense to you. It's like, wow. Because you have had an experience, you have told yourself, I identify with X and I do not like X. So every time I see that, I'm going to have a negative reaction to it. Narcissist over there. Really, it's pointing back to you. That is the part of the crooks, right? Where you're seeing things backwards. So the power of I am is truly that powerful in affirmations, and being able to correct your self-talk, reorder your words from an out of order state to being back into order, really changes how you see yourself. It takes away other people's ability to tell you who you are. Instead, you are showing them who you are. That is a big difference. And guys, I'm 40 minutes in. There's so much I wish I could relay to you, and like from a place of love, man. It's like being a man in a world full of feminism and politics that has just gone bonkers and makes no sense. And the stuff happening with the school systems all across the country. There's so much going on right now that it's, I've completely disconnected myself from all that mess. And I have a very strong sense of where I'm going with my life. And I'm going to continue to put videos up, and I'm going to continue to talk about these different things and bring awareness to it. And I want to be able to get to a place where I can be comfortable and having other men that want to learn about this stuff and openly talk about it in a way that is more teaching and helping to see how these different pieces fit together. Because the inward empath, right? You are able to discern what is coming in your path. Psychopath, empath. You are able to discern outward emotions that are coming in. So if everything is a reflection, the empath would be what's coming back to you, reflected from another person. This is something that in the Neville Goddard teachings is everyone is you pushed out. That is when you are projecting outwardly, everyone is you pushed out. When you stop projecting, you set your boundary, they can appear how you imagine. Not through projection, but through reflection. And that, my friends, makes a huge difference when it comes to being in the present moment and having awareness and being able to be the gift of life to each other. And with that, I'll see you guys next time.